people who have places to be. I've had clients who've had to take off of work for a long period of time just to be at court to tend to child support matters. And many times, they may be people who are addressing issues about not having enough money to pay their child support, or they're a little bit behind, or they're trying to catch up. And they're off of work waiting in court where they can't earn money. So I think that we have to recognize that the people's time is just as important as the judge's time, and just as important as the lawyer's time. It is true that when it takes a long time for lawyers to accomplish things, it is expensive for clients. And people shouldn't worry about the lawyers, because we have a file on our desk, and when we finish with one, we'll set it down and we'll pick up another and work on it. I would like to see us do a better job of staggering the hearing times so that there's not a huge crowd of people all waiting for a hearing at the same time, but that we stagger them so people are able to come at different times during that period of time that those matters will be heard in court. I think that will save people time when they wait for their turn, and it will certainly save time and money when it comes to the lawyers. Also, one of the things that I have seen in court with juvenile cases is people are waiting for an extended period of time, hours, and we could stagger hearings, collect them better, so that cases that won't take long will be heard first. Those that will take more time would be used, or they would be heard later on. Finally, did a bell ring?
The bell rang,
okay.
yes. You're out of time. I'm
I've
sorry.
got other ideas too. So.
And Ms. Simpson, managing a court docket is important to the court and to the public. How will you manage the docket?
There's simply not an easy solution to managing all of the many, many cases and the many, many important stories that need to be heard on the family court docket when the cases are voluminous. There's just so many people who need to be heard, and with many of the different statutes such as domestic violence and child abuse, there are strict time frames where those cases have to be heard within a certain time. So I must say it is a true challenge. It's a challenge for Judge Holderfield. It was a challenge for Judge Huddleston, and it will be a challenge for whoever is elected. I will say that as a Kentucky legal aid attorney, I handle a very large caseload. I handle hundreds of custody, divorce, domestic violence cases in a given year, and have to manage my time very wisely and work efficiently in the court system to be efficient and productive for my clients. One effort I utilized in trying to do that was initiate the pro bono mediation project with Judge Holderfield and Judge Huddleston to help keep the dockets running more smoothly and move cases more quickly. Further, while I was in private practice up in Louisville, Louisville has 10 family courts, so they are have an even greater challenge than we do in Warren County as far as how to handle the numbers. And I was able to learn through that court system how to handle a variety of many different cases with limited time constraints, doing things like docket sign-in sheets and other strategies that I would like to talk with Judge Holderfield and the rest of the staff about whether they think that might be effective in Warren County.
Thank you very much. And we begin our next question with Ms. Brinkley. Do you feel that collaboration between the court, other judges, and community partners is important? What are your thoughts on how to ensure this collaboration?
I think that type of collaboration is crucial. Working with the agencies that I've worked with, I've become so educated about all of the services that can be provided, all that BRACAC does, all that Family Enrichment Center does in terms of supervising visitation, all that CASA does. They're all crucial parts of how I think the family court system should run. when families come, there's not always just one issue that they're dealing with. And that's why, one court, one family is such an important thing, because you're probably going to see that family again. You're going to see them for, if it's a divorce, you may see them for a custody. If it's an educational neglect, you may see them someday for a truancy. So they're going to be back. And lots of times, like I said, there's not just one issue. There's many issues involved that need to be addressed. And so it's good to know, and it's good to have those community partners to refer those families to. So I think the only way to really make it work well is to have an educated court about what all families that come before you can take advantage of in terms of obtaining those services, and making sure that whatever issue's going on, that it's a proactive approach and not something that becomes reactive. And so if we're here with a 6-year-old that's being educationally neglected, let's end it here and get services for that family so they don't become a teenage truant. So I think it's crucial partnership.
Thank you very much. And Mr. McCracken, do you feel that collaboration between the court, other judges, and community partners is important? What are your thoughts on how to ensure this collaboration?
The family court is a system. It's part of the system that, unfortunately, when children and parents come before it, something has probably gone wrong. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. A lot of times with children that come in through dependency neglect cases, services are needed for these children, whether it be evaluations, whether it mental evaluations, physical evaluations. If there are truancies issues, sometimes an IEP may be looked at, an individual education plan, to see how they're doing. The judge is the final straw in family court for those families, and it is up to the judge to, one, make decisions. That's what judges do. But two, the family court judge can help craft solutions, and help craft solutions for each family that comes there. Not every family is alike. Not every family that has the two parents, the mother and the father, are the same as the next family. They all have different needs. And we are blessed in Bowling Green, in Warren County, to have so many different resources available. So I think that it's imperative that the judge be able to work, whether it's life skills, whether it's family enrichment, whether it's CASA, any of the services, the school systems, any of the services that are available that needs to be explored to make sure that the families and the children involved make a positive step forward so that they can be productive when they become adults in Warren County.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Lanfear, do you feel that collaboration between the court, other judges, and community partners is important? What are your thoughts on how to ensure this collaboration?
Well, I believe all of us are going to agree that is important. We have a variety of agencies that serve our community that provide a variety of needs that family court it needs their help with. And the resources of those agencies, whether they are agencies like CASA or Life Skills or Family Enrichment or some of the others, they need funding and volunteers to help them continue to provide the services that we find that families need in family court over and over. The resources of the cabinet for families and children, they are stressed. And so there's a great demand on all the agencies, and cooperation is critical, not only so that they can accomplish the purposes that the families need them for, but also because that provides the best solutions for our families. One of the ways that we can ensure it, I think, is for the judge to remain in contact with the people that participate in those agencies, for the judge to continue to be informed about the services that can be provided by those agencies, and can call on those people even with a phone call, and talk to them about certain issues that they face and whether or not the resources are available from that particular agency to serve the needs of a family that is in crisis. It happens in Warren County, and we need to continue, or we need to ensure that it will continue to be provided for families here in Warren County.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Simpson, do you feel that collaboration between the court, other judges, and community partners is important? What are your thoughts on how to ensure this collaboration?
Absolutely. I believe such collaboration is extremely important, and I invite everyone here to ask anyone who works with me on a regular basis about not only my words on this subject, but my actions. This is what I do already. I'm working daily in the court system with our community agencies to come up with solutions for kids and families that are safe and make sense. It's incredibly important to keep open lines of communication and strong relationships between our local bar, our bench, our community agencies, including BRASS, the Barren River Area Child Advocacy Center, Hope Harbor, CASA, all of, and more. I'm sure inevitably I may leave someone out, and if I do, I certainly don't mean to. But everyone has a special insight and skill set to offer, and the ability to help come up with solutions for families that will address the holistic needs of the family, and we need to hear everyone's voice in that process. One idea I have and would discuss with Judge Holderfield and the family court administrators and staff is to perhaps implement a more informal way for us to communicate with one another in what I envision as a brown bag luncheon forum on a biannual or quarterly basis, where when there's issues impacting families, our community partners and agencies could come together with members of the family court bar, guardian ad litems, mental health professionals, and talk about how things are running. Certainly not about specific cases, but about systematic issues, and discuss as a team how we could maybe do things better.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Beck, do you feel that collaboration between the court, other judges, and community partners is important? What are your thoughts on how to ensure this collaboration?
It would be very important. The family court, as it has been been handled for the last 10 or 12 years, has been a manager of all the community resources that are available for from BRASS to Family Enrichment to CASA, which is a statutorily defined entity. I view the family court as a manager of all these different agencies to implement the ones that are needed for a particular family. However, in my practice, I notice that a judge often will order a particular type of counseling or a particular, say, a KTAP. They might order anger management, a BRASS assessment, drug counseling or whatnot. There are many, many different kinds, and I too don't want to leave anyone out that might be interested in that. But what I find is that the client is unaware, certainly much less unaware than the attorneys and the judges about what is available and what the purpose of that would be. So I would propose that there be an education seminar that all families, that adult members of families that are in family court involving a custody matter be required to attend, perhaps an hour for a coalition to appear and explain to different agencies that are in town and what they can do for them, so that when, as a judge, I order them to go to one of those, they understand the reason behind it. I think it's very important for people to understand the reason that they're being required to do a particular thing. And additionally, I would say that I think that all the attorneys that practice before family court should be required to attend the same seminar at least one time before they could practice in front of my court.
Thank you very much. And Mr. McCracken, we start our next question with you. What programs would you hope to implement in your term that would support your decisions and would restore the family unit?
One of the things is in educational neglect. The kids that come before, it's pretty traumatic when a child has to come in front of a judge, whether it's a family judge, and in some counties that don't have the family judges, they have district judges, is to get that early to help them through a diversionary program so they don't have to show up in court, but they are met with officials to find out the root cause of what's happening. That's one area. Other programs, one of the primary things that I see that causes difficulty with families in custody situations is the fact that they're very poor in communicating. The emotions run on the tips of their fingers. If you've ever been into a family court and watched a custody hearing or a visitation hearing, it's chock full of emotion. And I would like to see, in addition to the parenting classes that we give, for them to actually learn how to communicate, learn how to talk to one another in non-threatening manners, so that when they meet with when they have visitation or time sharing with their children, and a parent is discussed, that they'll know how to talk, or when the parents are in the presence of each other, they'll know how to communicate so that they do not unintentionally say things that will be inflammatory. As my wife tells me sometimes, it's not necessarily what you say, it's how you say it. And in my practice in divorce and in dependency and neglect cases, I see a lot of communication, things that if the parents actually learned how to talk to one another might help. And I think that is a problem that I tend to see in my practice, and I think a program that would help them learn how to talk to one another would be very important in keeping the family unit together.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Lanphier, what programs would you hope to implement in your term that would support your decisions and would restore the family unit?
Lauren, in all the years that I've done this, I have learned to start asking people this simple question, which may sound like a strange question when you're sitting in the office talking to the lawyer about your divorce. But that question is, in your heart of hearts, what do you want to see happen in your case? And half the time people tell me they don't want to get divorced. The family unit is so very precious. And so many times people in the heat of a disagreement or something like that may make decisions that long-term decisions that are potentially dangerous and harmful to their families. I've been in cases where people have asked to reconcile, and I think that that's important for them to explore that if that is possible. It's already been mentioned that parents say very harmful things sometimes about one another, either to their children or in the presence of their children. And one of the things that I would like to do, I guess if I'm the family court judge, I'd learn about the time that you can devote to doing this. But I think sometimes it's very important to talk to children. We want to protect children from the courtroom atmosphere because we don't want them to see the adversarial process between their parents. But I've been in case after case after case where I felt like it would be so important for the children to just simply speak to the judge and share their heart. And as a family court judge, I would not be quite so reluctant to do that, to be able to just sit down, not behind a bench, but to sit in a chair and talk with somebody about what's going on in their family. And I think that we could learn so much from doing that and learn to protect those who need protection and perhaps help those who need help to do the things in their family that will not be destructive.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Simpson, what programs would you hope to implement in your term that would support your decisions and would restore the family unit?
Well, as I've mentioned previously, through my work here in Warren County, I have already collaborated with our family court judges and family court staff to implement the pro bono mediation program. And I believe that that has been very successful for many families, not just legal aid clients. These are a lot of pro se litigants that somewhat often benefit from those services, and other people who cannot afford to hire a mediator to help resolve their differences before going into the courtroom. The reason why that is so important is because these are such emotional and difficult cases when children are involved. And it's a real challenge when we ask parents to go into the courtroom and tell the court all of the things about the other parent that they feel are wrong, and then the other side has the opportunity to do the same. And then we ask those parents, once a decision is made, to walk outside of the courtroom and get along with one another and be respectful and nice. It is very difficult and often unrealistic because it's a very, very painful, emotional process. And for that reason, I believe the benefits of mediation, when it's safe and appropriate, should be implemented, and I would like to see that project continue. I've also mentioned the idea about increasing communication between community partners through the Brown Bag Luncheon project, and I believe that will help us as a community craft good solutions for families. Finally, I would look to those who have programs that have been successful in other communities, and this one. We've reinitiated the Teen Court program, and would look to continuing that program and see its success in our community, and other programs around the state that are successful in other courts to see if Warren County can benefit from those programs as well.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Beck, what programs would you hope to implement in your term that would support your decisions and would restore the family unit?
The thing that I've noticed when children talk to the court is that by and large they want to be with both parents. I think that's very common many times. However, unfortunately, that cannot be done. Either you have a divorce type situation where the parents just cannot get along and they have to separate and the children have to be awarded to one or the other, or perhaps even divided more or less 50-50. That's a tragic situation, as I mentioned, that I've gone through myself, and I'm very much not wanting that to happen to children, but it does happen. Listening to children would be important, but it's probably not going to change the ultimate outcome of what's going to happen to them. The more important custody issues typically are not divorce. They're in the abuse, neglect, and dependency actions, where the cabinet for family services comes into play a great deal. The social workers have a great deal of power in terms of how they investigate a case. They have a great deal of power, typically with the court, in how they present the information to the court. I would like to meet with the Secretary of the Cabinet and talk to her about trying to alleviate a little bit of the burnout that I have seen and experienced with some social workers in some counties, including Warren County. I think we should maybe explore rotating the social workers in and out of the various departments so that they don't become so burned out that it's difficult for them to make the proper judgments. Another thing, I think I'm out of time, so thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And Ms. Brinkley, what programs would you hope to implement in your term that would support your decisions and would restore the family unit?
The family court rules provide right now for a guardian ad litem committee. I just rolled off serving on that committee, and basically it's a committee put forth of 3 attorneys that monitor the guardian ad litems, make sure that they're current on their training and things of that nature. I think it's a very important program to have because those attorneys that are working in termination of parental rights cases and neglect and abuse cases really have such an important role in the families that come before family court. They need to continue to be trained. So I think that is something that's crucial to that part of the system working. I'd also like to see the Phil Family Court be an annual teddy bear drive, so the closet never has to run empty. It may seem like a very small thing, but to the children who are being adopted and the family, the adoptive parents, it's really special moment when the judge hands over the stuffed puppy or bear to the child, and they can keep that in remembrance of finding their forever family. So I'd like that to be an annual drive. Also, something when I was working at the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office in law school in Lexington, in criminal court, they would have every few months, their victim's advocate would meet with any children that had to testify specifically in sexual abuse cases. And I think that would be important in all family court cases to implement some sort of program where kids that are going to have to testify, that are going to have to come before the judge, even if it's in their chambers, are first familiarized with what the family court is. And, there we had a pizza party and we showed them around, we let them sit in the judge's chair. And I think that was a really important thing. Their therapist could come in terms of minimizing their trauma. So I would like to see something like that implemented here.
Thank you very much. And we're moving on to our last question. This one will be answered in ballot order. So we'll start with Mr. Beck. Now, you are all attorneys, so what makes you the best candidate for family court judge?
I have by far the more extensive experience, as I have handled thousands of family law cases as the domestic commissioner. When I was the domestic commissioner before family court, I did not have a 5 to 7 person staff. I handled every divorce, every custody case, every child support case, every type of family law case that came in Warren County. I did that without benefit of a staff. I worked very, very hard at doing that. I developed a very good rapport with people that was coming before the court. I learned very quickly the amount of time that you have to give to litigants in your court. People want to come to court and they want to tell you what is happening. But if you let them take all the time they want, the dockets will get unmanageable. Now, we were talking about different programs and things to do, and both Mr. McCracken and I think, have mentioned that we have multi-county practices. We've both practiced in front of many different family court judges. One judge, for example, in Barron County, has a timing system very similar to yours. If you go in front of him and you say, I need a 2-hour hearing, he'll say, well, Mr. Beck, you get an hour and your opponent will get an hour, and I'm going to time you. That would be an example of the way I think we could cut down on the docket being out of control here in Warren County. Another way might be to get a third family court judge, but that would be up to Judge Minton to try to find the money for that. I think I have the most experience. I have 34 years of legal experience. I have the criminal and family law mix, which I think is very important.
Thank you very much. And Mr. McCracken, what makes you the best candidate for family court judge?
I've got 28 years of practicing as a lawyer. I have had judicial experience in the past. All of us up here, every person sitting up here has experience in family law, or we wouldn't be here. We all care about being here. But one of the elements that we haven't talked about is the experience that the lawyers and the litigants, that's what they are a lot of times when they appear in front of the judge, is their experience in the courtroom and how they act and respond when they leave. We need someone that has the patience to sit and listen to each story, the ability to temperament, to listen when the most absurd things get told, and we all could tell stories up here of things that we've seen that we couldn't believe came out of the mouth, not only of the lawyer, but sometimes their clients. And the ability to discern when children are involved, what is in the best interest of the children. Because after all, when children are there, as has been said before, they can't protect themselves. It's the judge's responsibility to help shape rulings that make certain that they are protected. I'll be fair. I'll be fair to every person that comes into that courtroom, man, woman, rich, poor. I will listen to everyone's story and make certain that my decisions are based on the facts of the case. Temperament. You've got to make sure that the person there, when the lawyers come in, as Mr. Beck and I both know, I can't tell you how many courts I go into where I'm scared to death to be in the courtroom because we're not sure how the judge is going to feel that day. And it's no disrespect to any judge, it's just a